p.m. Can I please have roll call, Michael?
Okay. Director 1. We ain't running, we're walking. We ain't walking, we're running. Go runner! Director Ruiz.
Go Dolphins.
Okay. Director Guthrie.
Go Cats.
Director Tanoka.
Here.
Director Maction.
Here.
Director Zuniga.
Yes.
Director Huss.
Pass this up.
Director Cruz.
Go Jeff. Sorry, I couldn't hear you said.
Oh, you're good. Okay. Director Cruz is here. Director Padilla.
Go Beach.
Director Rivera Jimenez. Director Calderon. Director Adams. Director Pataki.
What's the Matador?
Director Hudson.
Go Broncos.
Director Landaverde. Director Galarza Toledo.
Sierra.
Director Espinosa.
Rise up.
Director Garcia.
Go Gators.
Director Delgadillo.
Spartan up.
Director Borges.
Go Mustangs.
Director Tran.
Go Cougs.
Okay. Director Yomiona.
What is a lobo anyway?
Director Outpost.
Go Warriors.
Okay. Vice President Payne. Vice President Payne. Tran. Vice President Olivencia.
President.
Chair Reyes.
Thank you. We have quorum. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, the action item, approval of the agenda. If there is no objection to the adoption of today's agenda, all right, seeing none, it is approved by unanimous consent. We'll move on to action item consent calendar, which is the approval of the minutes. If there is no objections to the consent calendar, all right, then consent calendar is approved by unanimous consent. Next up is public comment. Public comment is an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the legislative body on any items affecting higher education at the campus or statewide level. Do we have any members for public comment? Okay, find the nearest microphone.
Okay, I don't know if this is a legal move, but I just want to advocate really quick for Michael Meeks, who's running for South Civic Engagement Officer, and just speak on behalf of his character and really the work that he's done. Oh, okay. And really speak on the behalf of his character and the work that he's done. Michael has been an activist on our campus, really trying to engage and really trying to make sure that students at large are engaging with our AS and engaging civically. Michael is a poli-sci major, so he's well informed and well aware of what's happening, including what's happening to our immigrant population, our documented population, everything regarding the census. And so I highly, highly recommend that you select Michael to serve in this position because I know he will not let you down. He's been a close friend to me, so I trust him. But yeah, vote for Michael.
All right, is there anyone else for public comment?
Anywhere you guys prefer me to stand or?
Wherever you wish.
Perfect. So I'm here to advocate for Senator Rocha Zuniga as somebody who's known her for a few years and somebody that's worked with her closely and had to share an office with her. I'll tell you this much, she truly does care about everything she does. One of the most sincere people I've ever met and the most genuine smile ever there. Whether you're having a day of one of your best days ever, one of your worst days, she'll be there and to advocate for you. So in a sense, she's there to make sure that your voices are heard. Whether it's the DACA students on our campus, the multicultural organizations on our campus who have been underrepresented and she's there for them, or any group within our campus whose voices haven't been heard in the past few years, she's there advocating for them day in and day out. And she'll do the same as a civil engagement leader as well. So again, Trust me when I say she's one of the most sincere people that cares about civic engagement anywhere in the Central Valley.
Hi, my name is Tracy Sadek. I'm from CSUN. I'm here just to talk about Michael Meeks, who's running for the civic engagement for the Southern schools. And I think he would be best suited for this position in particular because he's really dedicated. He's like the most civically engaged person I have ever met. He's also president of our Students for Political Decency Club on campus, where we have held protests and just made sure that students are more civically engaged and more aware of the political affairs that are happening around the world. And I truly believe that he is best suited for this position, especially with all the political issues that have been going on with the immigrant population on campus. My parents are immigrants themselves, and he's been very supportive and open to hearing any of my concerns that I've had, and I think he'd be best for the position. So I highly encourage you all to vote for him and read the paper that he's given you on your tables. Thank you.
Is there any other members of the public? Go ahead, Eric.
Hi everyone, I'm over here. Since it was mentioned about one of the candidates, I want to advocate on behalf of one of our students who's also running for the Southern Civic Engagement Officer, which is Pandian. Pandian has been a part of the organization for over a year now, and is currently our Civic Engagement Officer on our campus. So they're currently doing the role there. He's done a lot of great things on the campus already. He's drawn up a resolution in support of AB 331 for the ethnic studies requirement for K through 12, particularly 9 to 12 high schools requirement, and he has been involved in all of our discussions regarding how to get our information out there. We have launched a component on our website for Census 2020, and he's been a big instrumental part about that, and we've been promoting that with our university administrators, the importance of being civically involved in the community, and Pandy has been a part of that entire process. So I highly encourage all of you to vote for Pandy for Southern Civic Engagement Officer. Thank you.
Do we have any other members of the public? Go ahead.
Good evening, good afternoon, Board of Directors. Congratulations on your positions. My name is Tracy Johnson from Northridge, and last year I served as the Election Affairs Committee member. And I just want to say for Michael Meeks, his candidacy for the Southern, that last year he was a member of my lobby corps and was involved in chess. He was in several of these meetings as well, not only as a lobby corps, but as an activist for his campus. I just want you to know that he has some experience. And hopefully this is the last time that LA and Northridge are in competition, because we're team members in Civic and we really go places together. So vote for Michael Meeks for this
Good afternoon, my name is Jen. I'm also from CSUN. I wanted to advocate for Michael Meeks as well. I've seen a lot of what he's done at CSUN, but he also cares a lot about the schools outside of CSUN in the Southern region, so I know that he can do a lot of good outside of CSUN and bring his experience from what he's done into the other schools, not just CSU schools, but also UCs and all of the students in the Southern region, so I really encourage you to vote for him.
Thank you. Is there any other members of the public that would like to address the Board of Directors? Okay, then we'll move on to liaison reports. We'll start with our academic senate, Dr. Collins.
Thank you, Chair Zara, and congratulations to the new CSSA leadership. Good afternoon to you all. It is truly an honor to be here, and particularly to give the liaison report from the ASCSU. On behalf of Chair Nelson, I offer her deepest apologies for not being able to attend in person, and her most sincere appreciation for the collaboration in this past year that has enabled us, through particularly your liaison efforts, to engage in a lot of vital and important works this past academic year. However, I must say that I also asked to come to this meeting as well, with great enthusiasm. Namely because not only is CSU Fullerton the place where I began my teaching career in the university, but also I want to personally say, express my gratitude to you all for the Faculty of the Year Award, and to say thank you with great humility. I promise to make amends with that by providing your office in Long Beach with Ghirardelli chocolates, a San Francisco treat, as I'm from San Francisco State. But also, it has already started with your CSSA leadership. The C's candy is floating around. All right, on to my report. As it is summer, the full ASCSU does not meet. However, the executive committee has done hard organizational work on behalf of the whole to set the stage for a collaborative and productive 2019-2020 year. And we look forward to actively working with the CSSA leadership. In the fall, our Academic Affairs Committee will continue to examine the roles of artificial intelligence in the college classroom and career preparation. The committee will also focus on general education in the CSU as well as teacher preparation. The Academic Preparation and Educational Programs Committee will continue examining the implications of the fourth-year quantitative reasoning requirement and associated eligibility requirements. While the ASCSU supports the requirement, as indicated in our resolution language, we will continue to urge the CSU to take the necessary steps to mitigate negative impacts on under-resourced districts and underserved students. The ASCSU will also be sending a representative to the Board of Trustees Committee on Educational Policy Special Public Comment Open Forum on Quantitative Reasoning Proposal on August 20th, 2019 in the Dunphy Auditorium at CSU Chancellor's office, and looks forward to discussing these issues with the CSSA leadership. Our Faculty Affairs Committee will continue to examine the implications of Course Hero on faculty intellectual property and the importance of involving contingent faculty in shared governance as well as public information requests. The Fiscal and Governmental Affairs Committee will continue its legislative advocacy and tracking and will be reaching out to the CSSA leadership as well. Central in their efforts will be the examination of ways in which we can increase the ASCSU profiles, as well as in collaboration with the CSSA, but also gain a bigger understanding of how the legislature thinks about the CSU tuition structure. This examination will also draw from the assertions made with great force by the CSSA on the extent to which financial aid actually meets basic needs last year. The ASCSU is also planning and looking forward to collaborating with the CSSA on our CSU Leadership Retreat. Our aim in this retreat is to address how diversity, equity, and inclusion shape an education that will produce an informed citizenry in the state of California. Our focus on equity and inclusion will extend beyond our retreat to include an interrupting racism training for senators, which will encourage senators to have faculty engage in as well. And this will take place during our upcoming plenary. Senators will also examine the ways in which the ASCSU can foster a more inclusive environment with our own committees and with particular attention to how we balance gender and ethnicity on these committees. The ASCSU commitment will also include discussions of ways in which to implement the principles of Assemblymember Weber's Bill AB 1460, whether or not it passes. This bill would, in fact, establish through legislation an ethnic studies graduation requirement throughout the CSU. AB 1460 is scheduled to be heard in the Senate Appropriations Committee on August 19, 2019. If it is passed out of committee, then it will go to the full Senate. The ASCSU opposed this bill, not for its principles, some of which the Senate has already begun to address, but the precedent of legislative intrusion into CSU curricula on ethnic studies, which would legitimize the use of legislation to shape CSU curriculum. Our letters and testimonies given by Chair Nelson have been met with two responses. One, this is not a legislative mandate on curriculum. It merely sets a general graduation requirement. Two, it's time for the ASCSU to act on the recommendations given in the Ethnic Studies Task Force report. The first, as mentioned previously, we respectfully disagree with. The second response, however, has been welcomed by the ASCSU. Resolutions have already been passed in support of the advancement of ethnic studies in the CSU, the unique historical origins of the field in the CSU, and its force as a student demand made in 1968 by the strikers championing the importance of relevant education, which many of you discuss as well. The latter often distinguishing CSU graduates for their ability to do more than speak of the importance of diversity and inclusive excellence, but to put these principles into practice and lend to their address as informed citizens as well as employees of the state of California. The ASCSU, in collaboration with the Ethnic Studies Council, also plans to discuss the core competencies suggested in AB 1460. Therefore, whether or not and regardless of how the legislative process plays out, implementation will be a faculty-driven process to ensure the maintenance of both faculty and student success practices already within CSU classrooms. This is where the CSSA, and as in the past, will be looked to for candor and leadership to enable the ASCSU to understand what it is like to experience CSU curriculum. More specifically, given your previous support of the discipline, ethnic studies in the CSU. Thank you, Chair Zara. This concludes my report, and hopefully you will all enjoy the chocolate, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Dr. Collins. I appreciate the chocolate too.
My pleasure.
Is there any questions for Dr. Collins? All right, Director Evelyn?
Yes, I do have a question. I'm wondering, because I've heard this spoken a lot on faculty, so I'm wondering what incentives will be given to faculty in order to be, an active participant in pushing this forward.
Pushing AB 1460.
Yeah.
Right now, to be candid, because I'm torn between the Ethnic Studies Council as well as the ASCSU. Many of the faculty are divided on this issue. One, this is extremely important for allowing you to have the skills to address ethnic and racial issues of the time. And so they are very much in support of an effort to move the advancement of ethnic studies forward. And so any incentive that comes out for them will be the ability to contribute, especially on these core competencies, to shaping how this new form ethnic studies requirement will look. The other part is, especially for those who, like myself, are concerned with legislative intrusion, we are arguing against it, so we lose our incentive, particularly in this process, because we don't like legislative intrusion. However, regardless of where we stand, the incentives, I think, for all will be being able to come together to discuss the core competencies and make sure that the best practices that are already in place for big ethnic studies colleges like my own to be there and maintain, while smaller programs and departments are actually able to develop. So this actually, in many cases, I see it as a win-win, whether or not this plays itself out, although my Senate colleagues disagree with me. But I think for the faculty, it is a win-win because all will be encouraged to engage in a dialogue, which is the first of its kind, on the nature of ethnic studies in the CSU outside of that task force.
Is there any other questions? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to CSU Board of Trustees. Paul?
Hi everyone. It's going to be a pretty short report since there's no board meeting this month. But next meeting is July 23rd to the 24th, so that's next month. As most of you I think probably heard already, we got our second student trustee yesterday. It was officially announced. And I kind of mentioned this during the student trustee committee, but speaking from experience, it can be kind of rough to come in to be appointed into your position a little bit later. So I just hope that we all help her step into this position, and we all help her catch up on anything that she needs to know, so then she can help us in her role as a trustee. But moving on, this past meeting in May, the board had a discussion on the audit, and we were able to see different points of view. We were able to see the CSU and their defense of the audit, but we also saw the Lieutenant Governor raise some really good questions, some really good points regarding how maybe the state used the audit and how it could affect us. After that, there was also, the board discussed increasing the application fees, which eventually passed. So right now, the application fee used to be $50, but now it went up to $70. So if you to apply for a CSU campus, $70 now, $15 increase. There was also really fruitful discussion on the fourth year quantitative reasoning proposal. I think the trustees were really concerned with the possibility that a requirement like this could negatively impact underserved communities more than anything. So I was glad to see some real concern on that part. And speaking on that, on Thursday, August 29th, from 10 to 1 p.m., the Committee on Educational Policy will meet in a special meeting. I sit on the committee, so I'll be there Hope to see you, whoever can show up and give public comments, to do so. And if you can tune in, it's always good to stay informed, especially on something like this. Basically how, from what I've heard, we'll get presentations from community stakeholders, so people that are in favor of the proposal, people that are against the proposal. And then after those presentations, the Chancellor's office will give their presentation, and then the trustees will be able to ask questions of all the presenters. So it's a really good, it'll be a good meeting to tune into to just get more information on what the proposal, not only what the proposal will be, but how the board feels about it, and just some of the issues that will be raised. I think will be really important. And then finally, after the fourth year requirement discussion, executive salaries were also increased at the last meeting. I think it was a 3% increase. Just putting it out there, and that's pretty much it for my report. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Is there any questions, Director One?
Executive salaries. So salaries for the presidents, and then salaries for, I believe, the Chancellor and staff at the Chancellor, Vice Chancellors are all executive, I guess, right? They're designated as SEPs or managers. The reason why the board has to vote on it every time that they want to do it is because by law, MPPs or personnel that are designated as MPPs can't unionize, so they have to we have to agree on their salaries. The board has to basically agree on them every year. But it's not like with and correct me if I'm wrong because I'm not too familiar with this process. But the way I understand it, staff that can unionize, so CSUU or CFA, they through the collective bargaining committee and the collective bargaining process, in their contracts they have their yearly increases, so they bargain for those. But executives can't do that by law. They can't, so they can't unionize. So they don't bargain every year, or they don't have a contract that says if we sign up for 5 years, you'll get 3% increases every year. They have to come back every year, basically. The cost of living increases and things like that have to come before the board every time.
Director Hunter.
Can you clarify when the Board of Trustees meeting is? I think you said July.
Yes. So the next full meeting of the Board of Trustees is July 23rd through the 24th. Oh,
It's August.
September. My bad. Excuse me. I know it's summer, right? I did say July. I wrote down July for some reason. It's not July. So never mind. You know, now I'm kind of worried that the number might be wrong too. So I will get back to you on that. All right. So the number's right. The month was wrong. That's my fault.
So it's September.
Yes, and it's also after lunch. So my bad. Yeah.
What are the dates again? So it's September
23rd, 24th.
Thank you. Director Reese.
Hi. So last time you mentioned that they were going to bring back the information from the survey that they put out again from the bigger increase.
Yes.
What was kind of the reaction from the survey results?
So I think that was a mistake on my part. Those are more for the executive compensation policy. So I think I mentioned it, and it's really confusing. Confuses me every time. The big buzzword last year was executive compensation policy. So in looking at the whole policy and how we compensate our executives, that's what the outside consulting firm was hired for, and that's what the information is for. In terms of just any executive salary increases, any change, that's kind of standard. You don't really need too much data. The reason why they wanted to get outside data from a consulting firm in terms of adjusting or amending the policy as a whole is because I think CSU executives are below the median, the national median, I think, right? So they just want to do a study on, okay, how are we actually compensating executives? If we look at it, not just in terms of base salary, but we also look at it in terms of their, cost of living, so they get housing stipends, they get transportation stipends, things like that. So if you look at the whole picture, how are we actually comparing to other institutions? So that's what the outside data is for. The board hasn't gone back to look at the policy since last year in July. Yes, I'm getting my months right, July. But Chairman Day made a comment. So basically, there was a conversation about why don't we look at so this past meeting there was a conversation about why don't we look at the policy soon. And Chairman Day did make a comment that this board would probably look at it. So based on what Chairman Day said, hopefully sometime this year, the board will look at the whole policy again, and that's where all of that data comes in. It's weird because there's a distinction between executive compensation policy and just executive compensation as well. And it's really confusing, to be honest. I hope I answered your question. And, yeah.
Well, sorry. Is that, you mentioned that they wanted more information from the original study that they did from the outside firm, and that they brought back the new information that included like the housing stipends and stuff. Did that happen, or am I making
It didn't, because that's for the policy. You know?
Okay.
So I may have mixed up my policy
Okay.
and compensation and several things as well. So that's fine.
Is there any other questions? All right, then. Thank you, Juan. We'll move on to reports of staff and officers. We'll start with our Executive Director, Rob.
Everyone. So I'm gonna turn it over to staff real quick. Actually, I'll go first and then I'll turn it over to you all after I'm finished. So most of you are aware, and for those who aren't, I submitted my letter of resignation to you all and President Wiafe a couple of weeks ago, and so this is my last meeting, and I wanted to just take an opportunity quickly to just say a few words of some of my time here. And I wrote down some of my thoughts here, so I kept them organized. So to me, I think one of the things that I really want to emphasize to you all, that this really wasn't a job to me. It was really just an extension of what I've committed my life's work to. And what I've committed my life to really is ensuring that every student has a fair shot to succeed. And what that has meant to me has been truly being equity-minded in the approach to my work, and acknowledging that not every student is starting the race from the same point, that really all of the data tells us that white folks and higher income folks have a head start in the race. And I've committed my life and my life's work, my profession, to addressing those issues. For the past 3 years, it's really been a privilege to work with you all and your predecessors in leveling that playing field in a variety of ways, including fighting for resources for hungry and homeless students, to initiating research that highlights the experiences of Black male student leaders, to fighting for financial aid that goes to students who need it the most, and to everything in between. Although it's bittersweet to leave this work, I'm also excited and feel it's the right time for me to transition to this next phase of my professional and personal journey, and continue the work in advancing student success through my new role as the Director of Special Initiatives for Academic Success and Inclusive Excellence. I want to do one thing that doesn't get to happen very often, which is I really want to thank the staff for all the time and effort that they have put into this organization over the last 3 years during my time. They have all made tremendous sacrifices for this organization and do not often publicly receive the recognition or thanks they deserve. And I will not miss this opportunity to recognize them for everything they have done for me and for CSSA during my time. I also want to thank this year's executive committee for the commitment they have made to this organization and serving CSU students, and all of the sacrifices that they have made and will make in the future to advocate for the needs of CSU students. I'm excited to see all that you will accomplish this year. I hope that you all will stay in touch and let me know if I can ever be a resource to you. And I wish you all the best in the 2019-20 academic year. Thank you. I'll turn to staff if they have other announcements.
Thank you, Rob. Chris?
Just a really quick announcement about the recording of the meetings. As you all can see in the middle of the room, we're recording the meeting right now. The recording from the July plenary is still being uploaded on my computer at work at this moment. I had to order some new equipment. I didn't realize that there was going to be some space storage issues. So you'll see that video come out soon, and you'll see this one in the next 2 weeks or so. And then hopefully later on in the year we can assess and talk about what we can do to improve it moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Any other staff? No? Okay. Thank you. We'll fact-based report.
Okay, so I don't know if all of you noticed, but my written report is in the attachments for the Board of Directors meeting, so I don't want to take up too much time during the meeting for my report, but I'll highlight a couple things on it really quickly. Overview, we've been working pretty much onboarding this entire summer, getting used to our roles, some of the things that come with system-wide leadership. I've been connecting a lot with external organizations. Phone calls is the name of the game. Maintaining relationships, learning how we worked in the past, learning how we can work in the future. You'll be seeing some of that work in the coming meetings. I have a list of some of the key meetings that I've been having over the past month. So if you're any interested in that, just go ahead and take a look. Feel free to ask me any questions about all of them. Some ongoing projects, some of our research partnerships that are going on. And the newest one is the executive director search. So if you're on the personnel committee, you heard how that's going and what we're going to be doing moving forward. I'll also be presenting on that today, a little bit further for the Board of Directors meeting. We also have a couple events coming up for the next month, speaking engagements, those sort of things that we'll be engaging in for the next month. Look forward to seeing you all in September. Please take a look at the report. And I'd just like to acknowledge CSC Fullerton for having us in this beautiful room on their beautiful campus. Thank you for taking the time to do this. Thank you. Hi. Thank you for doing this and putting all this work together. It's greatly appreciated, and thank you, Rob, for all the work that you've done for this organization. He's really served as a mentor for me for the past couple months, and I've learned quite a bit about leadership and learned a lot of lessons. So sad to see him go, but we have quite a long road ahead of us and the work that we'll be doing. I'll talk a little bit more about it during the personnel stuff, but I'll take any questions now. Anybody has any? Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to my report. I didn't really have a written report for y'all this month. Mostly what I've been doing, I think you know by now, is setting up the plenary. I just want to spend this time to talk a little bit about the meeting logistics. So, by the way, if any of you ever need to use like the restroom or need to leave, like just kind of nod at me, and then when you come back, I'll nod back at you and say that you're recognized, so you don't have to like ask permission or anything. And then we have a packed agenda, so be patient. And we probably will call a recess later on, just because the recording only does an hour and a half. So halfway through that meeting, I'll call for a 5-minute recess. That's it on my end. Any questions? All right, and yeah, I finally am starting to learn to say your last names. We'll move on now to Vice President Tran.
So I also did submit a written report because it's quite brief, but I'll just highlight just something that I'm going to go over a little bit with Finance Committee later today, that we're going to be doing a reserve transfer of about $728,000 from the reserves into our operating fund, just to offset that deficit. And this should be the only time that we have such a major transfer from the reserve to the operating fund. But that's because we don't want to be operating in a deficit anymore. So I'll be going into the details of that later for the Finance Committee. If you're interested in doing that, you can ask the questions there. I also wanted to take this time to thank Dr. Rob Charette personally, wherever he may be. Okay, for the recording and for everybody else here. He has been a tremendous leader, at least for me, someone that has been always approachable and someone that I look to as a servant leader. Someone that has definitely made me feel very welcome in this space that I know is quite intimidating, especially with the barrier of entry for student leaders. So I really want to take his leadership and exemplify it here. And I really wanted to thank him wherever he is for his service to his organization, and that let it be known that this is not the last time that we'll see him, for sure, because he will be working on student success and the analytics team studying equity gaps in the CSU. I'm sure this is only going to strengthen our partnership externally. Here he is. I was just saying in my report how much I was thanking you, but anyway, that's the end of my report.
Is there any questions for Vice President Tran? All right, and to reiterate, thank you, Rob. We'll move on now to Vice President Peng.
To be conscious of our packed agenda, I would prefer you all to read my attached written report. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Vice President Peng? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to Vice President Ulagaju.
Hello, y'all. Didn't have a written report for y'all, just some brief notifications. CS Unity this weekend, again, if you have any questions about what's going on, the agenda, what's happening, download the Hoover app, it's important. Also, we would like to also extend my regards as Michelle and Michael, and we all do as the exec board. Again, thank you so much, Rob, for all your support for the past few years, and we hope to continue to see our relationship grow outside of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, seeing none, we'll jump right to it, to new business election. So before we start, I'm just gonna go overview about the process. Each candidate will be given up to 2 minutes for a speech. Following that, up to 2 minutes for questions. Candidates may stay in the room or leave the room at any time they wish. They can be around for discussion and voting. They may leave if they choose so. You can vote for yourself, that is an option. And I will be reading out each position, including a description of what they do, and then we're going over the candidates by alphabetical order. Even if a candidate is running unopposed, they still need to gain the majority vote to be elected into the position. All right, any questions about the process? Oh, and Vice President Peng have like 1 minute and 30-second warnings for y'all. And if you could stand there, right where she's pointing, and you can present your speeches there, either sit or stand, and that way she can give you warnings for your time. Okay, any questions on the process? All right, then we'll start with the election of the 2019-2020 CSSA Academic Senate Liaison. We have candidate Jacqueline Acosta. So before you start, I'm just going to go ahead and read the description of the position. So the Academic Senate Liaison operates under the Division of University Affairs, advocates for CSSA's position to the Academic Senate and at their bi-monthly meetings, and all of their travel for pre-approved business will be paid for by CSSA. You may start your speech.
Hi everyone, so my name is Jacqueline Acosta and I'm a 4th year student at CSSA. Go Eagles. So I've actually been at ASI for 3 years, and in all 3 years I've dealt with academic governance. My first year in ASI, I served as the undergraduate academic senator for my academic senate and a 2-term vice president for academic governance currently. So within my tenure in my AS, I have dealt with reading and drafting policy from scratch. I've dealt with resolutions and just higher education and academic policies throughout my 3 years in AS. And so my real focus to be Academic Senate Liaison is really to provide the view of CSSA in the Academic Senate. It's not my personal view, as I'm the liaison for CSSA's board, but not only to be a Senate liaison, but to continue being an ally and to be an activist, not just only to provide a perspective for CSSA. And my main goal would be, it's been a continuous conversation, but to hopefully get a voting seat in the Academic Senate for CSSA, as I think that would speak volumes, not only for CSSA, but for our students in general. And also, I'm very much a research-oriented person, so I would definitely bring, in a sense, controversial topics that would be very influential for our students and provide pros and cons to the topic at hand, so that CSSA truly has an understanding from both sides when considering action or when it's up for discussion. So hopefully you guys consider for me for this position. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline. We'll now take questions. Is there any questions for the candidate? Yes, Director Adams.
So how do you plan on creating collaborative relationships between CSSA and the ASCSU?
So I'm just in general a very outgoing person. So when I go to these weekend-long meetings with the ASCSU, just really networking with the fellow senators and building connections no matter what campus they're from, and continuously having contact with them. I'm not someone who's afraid to ask questions, so if there's something that I think needs to be asked, I'll definitely ask that question. And bridging that connection so that that there's just consistent communication between myself and fellow senators, and hopefully that, you know, when I guess controversial topics at hand come up, that I have people to reach out to, and not only have one perspective, but have various perspectives, as each campus has completely different values and goals and I guess traditional ideals for policies and so forth.
Any other questions? Director Hust?
Hi. Question. So I saw that one of your primary goals is to become a voting member on the Academic Senate. With that, how do you plan to obtain voting power on the Academic Senate, and then why do you think that is beneficial? Also, this question may also be directed toward, you know, let's say exec or staff members. Is that even a possibility?
I'm someone that's a firm believer that anything is possible. So it's really just having consistent communication with Chair Nelson or the representatives in the Academic Senate. It is not just a one-person discussion, but everyone else as well, because it would have to have additions to their constitution for the ASCSU. So having that conversation, I think is extremely possible. It's been an ongoing conversation. It's not something that just has come to fruition. And the reason why I think it's beneficial is because a lot of students, they don't tend to see
that is time. Thank you. We'll now open up discussion on the candidate. Is there any discussion on Jacqueline Acosta? Oh, you wanted your question answered if that was possible?
Yeah.
President Weafe?
I think my perspective would be that we can't expect to have a voting seat for them if they can't expect to have a voting seat for us and our board of directors.
Any other questions? Rob?
Historical context wise, I don't have any experience with anyone attempting to get a voting seat on the Academic Senate. I don't know if Dr. Collins, you have any other historical knowledge of it that's been a conversation like before 3 years ago?
One of the reasons why there hasn't been a voting member is particularly because when our committees function, we will reach out to the committees of interest in the CSSA. And so rather than giving one person one vote, it actually increases the student voice to have the committees interact directly rather than just through that vote. And some on the ASCSU, since I've been on it, see it as diminishing the student vote by just turning that liaison into a person who has voting power. Because then it would suggest to some committee members and some senators, they don't need to consult as widely as the practice we have now.
Thank you.
I hope that helped. Is there any other questions? Sorry, discussions? All right, seeing none, then we'll take it to a vote. We'll do a uncounted hand vote. All those in favor of electing Jacqueline Acosta to be the Academic Senate Liaison, please raise your hand. Okay, the majority have their hands. Congratulations, Jacqueline. Next is the election of the 2019-2020 CSSA Alumni Council Liaison. So the position operates again under the Division of University Affairs, is authorized to attend the quarterly meetings of the CSU Alumni Council and report back to us, and shall have all travel pre-approved by CSSA. So we have candidate George Salazar. You may start.
Good afternoon, members of the board of directors. I'm George Salazar, a third-year accounting student at Cal State LA.
The reason why I decided to run for this position, is because it's a very open-ended position and the candidate makes whatever they want to make of it. As your alumni council liaison, I would like to bridge both of our organizations together, because after reading the governing documents for both CSSA and the Alumni Council, I saw that a lot of the missions and goals align, such as advocating for students, not only current students, but students that are in high school and alumni after they graduate. So I'd really like to work with the executive officers and the board on seeing how we can bridge those connections and work together, because it'd be beneficial for both organizations. Another thing that I'd really like to focus on is communication. I think that we need to have strong communication, and I'd like to take what you guys have to say to the Alumni Council and bring what they have here to the table. With that being said, I think that strong communication is going to be an important role of this, an important part of this role, and I look forward to hearing from you guys. Anything that you'd like me to take to them, or anything you'd like to hear back. Thank you very much, and I hope you consider me for this position. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now take questions. Is there any questions from the board? All right, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
We'll move on to discussion. Is there any discussion on the candidate? All right, then seeing none, all those, we'll do a uncounted hand vote. All those in favor of electing George Salazar to be the 2019-2020 CSSA Alumni Council Liaison, please raise your hand. All right, it's actually unanimous. Congratulations, George. To both our liaisons, after the meeting, please come see me. Thank you. All right, we'll now move on. Yes, question, Director Adams.
Yeah, is it possible to get information prior to their speech, whether they're opposed or not? That way we know what's coming up next. Does that make sense? So like the last two positions were unopposed, so, I mean, majority of us all voted for it. So before that, is it possible to know whether there's something?
Yes, I also put that information as a part of the attachment on the folder, so if you wanted to see how many candidates, it's there. But I'll make it easier and announce how many candidates are running for the position.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to elections of the 2019-2020 CSSA Social Justice and Equity Officer. We only have one candidate, and it's Crystal Reynes. And I'm gonna go ahead and read your description before you start your speech. The position again operates under the Division of University Affairs, shall uphold and protect social justice and equity within CSSA, shall review, research, and make recommendations to establish and augment social justice and equity within the CSU system, and shall serve as the chair of the Social Justice and Equity Committee. Okay, Crystal, you have the 2 minutes. You may start.
Hi all, my name is Crystal Rains. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm a proud Roadrunner from CSUB. Woo! Roadrunners. I have always been passionate about social justice and equity, but it never really actually fired up in me until I sat under Zara, who was the chair last year, Crash Chair. Nice plug there. I learned from there that I'm really passionate about fighting for specifically undocumented equality, having their same opportunities as a documented student here in the CSU. Currently, as VP of UA over at my campus in Bakersfield, we're working for making a more inclusive and welcoming environment for non-binary and transgender students. And now for the action plan for here, because you know that I'm like very passionate about this topic, very passionate. It's to discover problems within our CSUs, pair us up based on those problems so we can tackle them as subgroups. Next, to create research surveys, at least 15%, so that's our goal, 15% participation rates for those surveys. Brainstorm what our plan would be in the spring, and then finally draft something for the spring, whether that be in November or July, because we don't have a meeting in December, and actually getting that to work. And the hallmark of success is that if we actually get those key players in our plans to sit down with us and are willing to work on the issues in our campuses. And next, finally, Alejandro, I don't know if he's here, he mentioned a really good point, is that we need to go over the previous resolutions, and as SCHEC chair, if elected, my first priority would be giving y'all a binder with previous resolutions that add like social justice and equity like components to them, and making sure that we are held accountable and bringing them back to our ASs. So thank you again. My name is Krista Rains, and I sure hope you vote me in for your SCHEC officer. Thank you.
Is there any questions for Crystal? Yes, Director Trent?
Outside of ASI, what other social justice and equity work have you done?
I've done a lot my family is a very my mama and my father are immigrants, and so especially with the current climate at the border, working a lot and researching and advocating for really families and innocent people that are, y'all know the crisis at home. I don't need to speak to that. It's terrible.
Any other questions? Director Avalos?
Yes, I was wondering, you mentioned the drafting of surveys, so I'm wondering who would be responsible for drafting that, who would be responsible for tracking the research and just kind of presenting that?
So because there's no meeting in December, it would be really up to me and whoever will guide me in the process. But with experience working for the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, who define what food insecurity is, making a nonpartisan, very neutral survey so that it doesn't influence people to self-select themselves for that position, so that our research is more credible by more conservative legislators.
Is there any other questions? Director Garcia.
Okay, I just have a simple question. So what do you see in the future of the Social Justice and Equity Committee? I know last year there was talks of not having the committee present anymore, making a task force. So what do you see in the future, after this year?
After this year, well, we have to see how this group and really these bright people come together, and from there we can take our steps forward. But I'm really hoping for another SJAC committee next year. So that's what I really hope for, because I think there's a lot of things to do, and I think this is a great format for it.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.
Is there any discussions on the candidate? Yes?
I just have a question. Can we have a candidate stand somewhere where we can all see, just so I know from this side position?
Sorry, I can't hear you. Can you speak into the microphone?
Not necessarily about the candidate, but just in regards to for the future elections, so we can have somewhere where they can, where everyone can see them. Just because on this side, I know if they stand in that corner, it's difficult for this side to view the candidate.
Okay. Would it be better if we have them stand there? Or here? I'm terrible at directions. All right. Okay, then we can just have the candidates present over there, so that's easier for everyone. Thank you for that feedback. Is there any discussions on the candidate, Director Wong?
So I've been in ASI for 4 years, and Crystal Rains is one of our most exceptional students there. She's always been a proud advocate for students, and she's done an exceptional job when it comes to learning about different problems that students face, when it comes to researching the Board of Trustees or how to convince people. She's done an amazing job, and now as University Affairs, she's still doing an amazing job, so I think we should vote for her. And she's the only candidate, so we gotta vote for her.
Is there any other discussions? Director Garcia?
I think a point of information. So let's say they bring a resolution forward, would that have to go through University Affairs, or would that go directly to the Board of Directors?
It can go directly to the Board of Directors. Is there any other questions or discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll take a uncounted hand vote. All those in favor of electing the 2019-2020 CSSA Social Justice and Equity Officer to be Crystal Raines, please raise your hands. All right, passes unanimously. Congratulations. There is a time certain item on the agenda, which is the discussion item, CSU Basic Needs Update and Feedback. So if there's no objection, I'm gonna move the order of the meeting and have that start right now. Is there any objection?
All right, seeing none, we'll have that started. Dr. Bentley?
Okay, where do you guys want us to stand? We want to do, okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for allowing us to be here. My name is Denise Bentley, and I oversee student wellness and the Basic Needs Initiative, and I will let Dr. Jarnigan.
Hi everyone, great to see you. My name is Leah Jarnigan, and I recently joined the Office of the Chancellor as the Special Assistant for Student Affairs. And with Dr. Bentley's planned departure next Thursday, I'm throwing her daggers right now, I will be your interim director for student wellness and basic needs. Just by way of very quick introduction, because many of the students in the room I haven't had a chance to meet you, I'm standing in Titan territory where I served for almost 20 years, this institution in student affairs. Most recently, I come to you from Cal Poly Pomona, where I served as the Vice President of Student Affairs.
Fantastic. Okay, so today we wanted to share with you all a little bit about a project we've been working on, and we wanted to get some feedback from you all on it. About a year and a half ago, we started having conversations and really developing a framework around basic needs and security for our system. And I must say, as I've gone around the country and done conferences and talked to different groups and different universities and whatnot, the CSU is really head and shoulders above all of the other systems in the United States, and most of our campuses are doing wonderful work ahead of all the other universities across the United States. So I just want to let you guys know, even though we have a long ways to go, we're doing a lot of great work, and I want to encourage you all to continue that push. Because it's really coming from the student voice and from your input and from you guys prioritizing this work and really putting some pressure on our leadership within the CSU. So I just want to applaud you for that. So many of you have probably seen me before presenting on basic needs. As Dr. Jarnigan mentioned, I am going to be stepping away from this position, but the movement should continue. Dr. Jarnigan will take the ball and run with it, and we'll continue to have a lot of conversations with CSSA about how we can continue to enhance and develop some of the programs and services we're currently offering our students and make it more of an efficient delivery of services to our students. And so part of what we're here to do today is just talk to you all about a guiding principles document that we have tried to come up with as kind of a resolution for our system to talk about how committed we are to the work of basic needs, and really to have this understanding across all constituents within the CSU about what we are trying to do with the Basic Needs Initiative, and just really how we're approaching it from a holistic and comprehensive standpoint. I think when we first started this work, it was a lot of food pantries, giving food away, food pantries, food distribution. Did I mention food pantries? So we've developed a lot from that. Now we have emergency housing on campus. We just received funding from the state to do a more comprehensive rapid rehousing program. With your help, we were able to secure a one-time $15 million allocation from the state for basic needs. So we've been able to grow programs. Our CalFresh outreach has been a really great development, and all of our campuses have CalFresh outreach now happening. We also are looking into bringing on restaurant meals program, and for those of you who may or may not know, the restaurant meals program allows certain groups that are receiving CalFresh benefits to purchase hot meals. CalFresh is really to buy groceries and prepare food at home. But with the restaurant meals program, if we're able to get that on our campuses, that means certain groups would be able to use those CalFresh benefits for hot meals, which would be great. So the CSU in that way has been really pushing forward a lot of this work, and so this guiding principles document is really for us to share across the system and have this understanding collectively of what we're trying to accomplish. So what we did is we started talking to our leadership and the Vice President of Student Affairs. Most of the work around basic needs on our campuses is either coming from ASI or from the Vice Presidents of Student Affairs and Student Affairs Division. So we wanted to have a conversation with them as well as you all to just get feedback on what they're hoping to see in the statement, what they were hoping to see in the statement, and then get buy-in from you all and feedback from you all so that we come to this collective voice of what basic needs is. And so we had a draft statement in the fall. We discussed it in the spring, and now we're bringing it here to you with the hopes of this school year potentially rolling this out, everyone having a copy and being able to share this on your campuses. And so I think this was going to be...
Go to the next one.
Okay. So just quickly for everyone to know, we've shared this many times, but I always like to go through this quickly. This is our framework for the Basic Needs Initiative, and it's really a progressive 5-step rollout. The first piece is immediate needs. So the immediate needs of our students, that means the food pantries. That means the emergency housing for students. If you have someone who's coming into your pantry or to your basic needs center and they're saying, hey, I'm in a crisis, we can't tell them, fill out all this paperwork and come back in 2 to 4 weeks and we'll see what we can do. Okay, we gotta meet them right then and there. That's when we're talking about the immediate needs of our students and being able to respond to that in a comprehensive way. The next area is growth. So a lot of our campuses do offer programs and services, but do our students know about it? How do we raise the awareness of the programs and also our staff and faculty so that they know, so that they can make appropriate referrals? The next thing is scale. So if we have a good program that's working on one campus and it's been successful, why don't we share that across all of our 23 campuses as much as we can? I just heard one of the candidates saying, you know, different campuses have different climates and different things and different student populations, and that's true. But if we have a program that is working that we can tweak for certain campuses, for large or urban or small, rural, then we should do that. And we need to start sharing those best practices across the board. The next is collaboration. So working with our academic senate, working with you all, working with outside and external partnerships as well, and looking for ways that we can collectively come together, because this is not just a CSU issue, this is a national issue. This is for folks even outside who are not even in school. Okay, we're microcosms of larger society. So we're seeing that in our society, there are people that are hungry, they're homeless. Okay, so it's not that it's just happening to us. So how do we reach out to those partners that are in the community that can help address some of these issues? And then the last one is sustainable impact. We don't want this to be, even though the name of it is initiative, we don't want there to be a start and finish. There is no start and finish. Okay? We want this to be something that's ingrained and woven into the fabric of our campus culture. So one of the examples of that that we're really proud of is this last year we added a question on the Cal State Apply application. That's the application for all first-time students into the CSU. And we simply just asked them, are you interested in finding out if you're eligible for CalFresh benefits? We have a link there to what CalFresh is. We had over 150,000 students check yes. The unique users on the application, I think we had a little over 300,000, so over 50% of our students are saying, yes, give me information. So now we're able to do direct outreach to those folks. We're able to find out if they're meeting the threshold, if they're a part of certain programs and whatnot, so to see how eligible they are or if they're eligible for those CalFresh benefits. So we're just trying to think about what are some things that we can put into the systems that already exist to make this sustainable. Even when dollars are fluctuating up and down. We got $15 million this year, we may not get that next year. Okay, but what can we have in place so that we can make this as sustainable as possible?
All right, thank you so much. So I was one of the vice presidents that served on the work group to really put some parameters around this work. And let me just say from a personal note, as someone who is a proud product of the CSU twice over and a member of the CSU for almost the last 30 years, there is nobody at that table who is not interested in helping students. Our challenge is the need is tremendous. The resources are of course limited, some years better than others, as Denise mentioned, and we have to find ways to build systems and infrastructure and capacity that can be maintained over time. So that's what we were attempting to do in bringing forth what I want to share with you, which is the vision, the purpose, and the foundational values that as a work team we've come and drafted and would love to get your reactions to. And I believe the actual document was included in your materials, so you'll have that as a reference piece. Okay, so from a vision, and this won't be a surprise to you at all, we recognize that it is our job, it is our imperative to meet students where they come to us from, where they're at when they arrive on our campuses. That's where we meet them at. And then looking to find ways to holistically support their well-being. And you can see the components of the model around well-being that we talked about. And having a mix, if you will, of initiatives and strategies and resources that are both housed within the classroom, as well as those that are outside of the classroom. And so that's what comprises the vision of having a framework and a guiding principle for doing this work. For our purpose, we really have three core components to our purpose. One is we believe that it is our responsibility to promote the construct of well-being and engagement. We know that you are not intellects walking around your campuses. That is only one component of who you are as a human being. And so while that seems like, if I can, a no-brainer, we know that it is our role, it is our responsibility to continue to remind our institutions that your well-being, your capacity to show up in all those different realms that you just saw in the vision, as well as your active engagement in your experience in the institutions in which you are pursuing your dreams, that those have to be constant reminders. That is a core of our purpose. Secondly, we have to build upon the initiatives that are already in place on campuses. And I am so incredibly impressed at how much each one of the 23 campuses has already been able to accomplish. We want to build upon that. And then thirdly, how do we do that? We do that through those partnerships that Denise was talking about. One of the things, and I'll just be very honest with you for a moment, one of the things that Vice Presidents for Student Affairs face is a very realistic question from their colleagues across the campus, which is this really our purpose? There are agencies outside of higher education that do this, and that's something we have to be able to address. And most of us address it by saying, yes, it is our work, because if we believe in meeting students where they're at, then we cannot close our eyes to their realities. But also, so it's an and both and, not an either or, we must have external partners in order to do this work and do it well and sustain it over time and make sure that student success does not become a subject of whether we have an appropriate intervention in place in the institution around basic needs. And so the values, and this is something that we spend a tremendous amount of time on. Again, you'll see some familiarity here with some of the vision as well. This idea that the full potential well-being for our students is a major component of not only their experience, but also the experience of the institution to serve students. So it is both the student and the institution who must be in partnership around this work. Secondly, we have to be self-critical. We must be willing to point at, name, and eradicate barriers that we have in place in institutions that make it difficult for students to be successful and to find the appropriate resources that they need. Thirdly, it is, again, both the institution and the student who must have efficacy in engaging students in their learning experience. So again, we're looking to do this in partnership with students, not doing it for students. And I don't know if that distinction really comes clear, but that is something that we feel is critical, and that certainly reflects the leadership voice of this body and others who have come before you. I know one of the first things that was said to me when I joined Cal Poly Pomona is, when are we building a food pantry? That was one of the first things said to me, and that was 3-ish years ago. So it has to be a goal, a shared goal of both the institution and the individual. We do have resource realities. I won't even call it limitations, because right now we're doing quite well in terms of support from the state. But with that, what data do we have, and what decision making are we empowered to engage in that says, and we're going to prioritize those resources to those initiatives that have the biggest impact? That's critical. Simply building resources or initiatives is not enough. You have to have a critical audience say which are going to make the biggest difference. And I know sometimes that's really challenging for students, because you may have a vice president who is saying, right now, X, Y, and Z initiative, while that might be in place on none of the campuses, we're not going to do that here. And this is why, and here's what we think we should pursue instead. That has to be an ongoing dialogue and conversation. That the campus culture matters. And that is so true for every equity and justice and diversity and inclusion component and experience we're going to talk about of any student that walks across any campus. Same goes for a student who is living in their car, taking a shower in the rec center, sleeping in the library, couch surfing, whatever it may be. If that campus culture sends the message that that is to be shamed and that that is to be hidden and that a student should not come forward, then that student is not going to thrive. Bottom line. And finally, ongoing evaluation, continuous improvement, which means if we try something, let's be willing and honest to say, I don't think that had the greatest impact. What are we going to do to shift it? And I will just say, as someone who's spent their whole career in higher education, we're not good at that. I'll just say it very bluntly. That is something we don't like to say. It's hard to start something and then stop it. It's easier to start something and keep it going, even if it's not working. So we really want to make a commitment to continuous improvement. All right, and so along with the statement, we sat together as a group and said, there are any number of initiatives we can engage ourselves in. Can we have a hierarchy, or could we have a taxonomy that would say, these are the core components we really want to encourage every campus to do, and here are additional levels beyond that. And so we have three categories. We have those legislatively mandated strategies. So all 23 campuses have engaged in some kind of food distribution initiative, as well as CalFresh outreach. That is baseline, if you will. And then the campuses are also, I'm not sure if all 23 are there yet, but the identification of a sole contact, a sole source or a point of contact for the campus, so that students are not having to run around to different people asking, but rather everybody is promoting and pointing them to one person. The second set of strategies have been implemented on numerous campuses, but these are not required by our legislatively allocated dollars. But many campuses have engaged in campaigns that range from promotion of opportunity for employees to contribute to basic needs kinds of initiatives, to engaging in the acceptance of EBT, the electronic benefits transfer. Awesome, okay. The EBT benefits that students may have at various venues on campus, having a campus-wide committee that's cross-divisional to engage faculty, staff, students, alumni in the conversation, participating in statewide CalFresh outreach days, etc. Many of our campuses are doing that. The final category is where I think some of us really love to live, which is the dream. Let's dream big, let's be aspirational, let's be innovative, let's take those opportunities where an Airbnb kind of company is saying, hey, campus, we're interested in working with you on a possible strategy for housing homeless students. And so those are not mandated by any kinds of dollars that are given us to us by the state. They're also a little bit more challenging to start to build, and so that's why you might see some diversity among the campuses in terms of the kinds of initiatives that they may be engaged in. The final thing I will say about that is the capacity to be aspirational and innovative is based on campus culture in part. It's also based on geographical location and the availability of partners in the community to you. It can also be based on your students' leadership body's capacity to say, we want to nudge, encourage, cajole, arm twist, and just say, we really want this done. And so it takes many factors coming together in order to be in this innovative space. And so with that, so we recognize that we had 30 minutes, I believe, and we wanted to get the presentation to you so that you could see the components of it and hear us speak to it, but we also want to have some time for Q&A.
You all have about 15 minutes for questions.
Sweet, 15 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I just want to say thank you to Dr. Beverly, because we've been working with this basic needs initiative for a very long time, and we've worked together. Also, thanks to all the CalFresh locations on the campus. I'm now the CalFresh grad assistant for being so thank you. My question though is, when we're talking about sharing those ideas about, not last year but the year before, we had the basic needs conference in Sacramento. Are we planning to do that for this spring?
We are. I'll speak to that because that's one of the projects that has landed on my plate. Yes, and what we're really excited about is this is the first time we're doing an intersegmental conference. So we have partners in the UC and in the California community colleges who will be working with very closely to develop a California Higher Education Basic Needs Conference. Right now, the dates are set for February 6th and 7th in Orange County at the Hilton in Costa Mesa. Yes. We'll be getting out more information about that. We're in the early stages of planning around that. Students have been a constant part of the conversation as we've been talking about it, everywhere from a planning component as all the way through to a content development and delivery component.
And just to touch on that, the students, we do want student involvement, so students to be a part of the planning subcommittees. There's also potential for a student-led something during that time. So that's something that we'll be reaching out to you all, or Leah will be reaching out to you all shortly about that.
And welcome, Nina.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Director Borges?
Thank you. Thank you both for the tremendous work you're doing. I think this might just be more of a comment to our chair, but the document you were provided that kind of has the breakdown of the strategies. I'm wondering if we can see the full chart, because right now it's a little
The PowerPoint?
Yeah, so on the Word doc that's provided, part of the strategies component, I can't see the whole document. So being able to see that.
Sarah, I'll work with you if you're comfortable with that and make sure that you have a format that works.
Yes, thank you. Any, Rob?
Hi. I'm wondering if you might be able to provide some insight. I know you're really trying to get some focused feedback from this group, and I'm wondering if you might have some insight about the conversations that you all had as Vice President of Student Affairs, kind of leading up to this, if there were any kind of like points of contention or, yeah, I know, right? But things that maybe you were hoping that this group could provide some insight on specifically.
Sure, go ahead.
So the conversation with the Vice Presidents of Student Affairs, I think as Leah mentioned, they're very supportive of this work, but I think the resources are what they're most concerned about, is just how do we pay for this. And as Leah has mentioned, over the last few years, we've been, I won't say lucky, but we've really strived and talked to folks in Sacramento and advocated for dollars to go towards this work. And so the Vice Presidents of Student Affairs, I think their thoughts are more around the sustainability of this and having staff to do this. And when we get the one-time funding, which is better than no funding, it's still one time. So hiring people to help with this is not really what they can do. And then it falls on someone who is maybe wearing already multiple hats, and then this is the 5th hat they have to put on, and then we're not sure what the dollars are gonna be like. I think everyone in here knows 3 years ago we got $2.5 million, last year we got $1.5 million, and now we're up to $15 million. So it's like a roller coaster of what the resources are gonna be. So for the vice presidents, their standpoint is, this is great, we wanna help students, we understand the importance of this to student success, graduation, retention. But we also are concerned about the sustainability of what we can actually provide. And on that, I'll just also say the other thing that has been mentioned is how can we start to show the impact of this work on retention? Because I think, as Leah mentioned in her slide, we are doing a lot of well-intentioned work, and it feels good, and theoretically it works. In our minds, we see people, we see students coming in, they're taking the food, we are assuming they're eating the food so they're not hungry, but we don't really know if them coming to the pantry means that they're working less hours, if they're stressing less, if they have more hope, if they feel more connected, if they feel like people on campus care about them, and that makes them stay. So that is the other thing that the vice presidents have thought of, is how can we start to show that this actually is doing something? And I think the staff on campus feel the same way, because they're also saying we need resources for this. but we haven't been able to really show like, this is doing something. We're showing the numbers, we're showing students using the resources, but we haven't been able to show the impact. I don't know if you want to add anything.
I would love to bold, underscore, and caps letter everything that Denise just said, so thank you so much for that. And indeed, one of my initial areas of focus when I joined the Chancellor's office was to do research around these kinds of initiatives, because at the end of the day, forget politics on campus when you're sitting at the cabinet making arguments about who should get what resources. Where it really matters is when you're up in Sacramento and you're saying, here's the proof, and that's all that's cared about. And I get it, because while I would love to fund everything that felt good, I also have to be able to prove that it's making a difference. So everything falls under the umbrella of student success, which means, does this help students be successful? And successful is defined holistically. We do care about how they feel, but we also have to prove that it's aiding in their retention and their persistence toward graduation. That's the bottom line. So yes, that is definitely an area of concern. The other one I would say, I referenced the diversity of efforts across your campuses. I've served on 3 different campuses, San Marcos, Fullerton, and Pomona. And I can tell you that while the populations can be seen as very similar, the environments are very different, the resources are different, the capacity, the bandwidth, et cetera. You get where I'm going there. And so, as a group of leaders, we feel the pressure, the push, the call from all of you. That campus has it, why don't we? And that will be for me, that will never be a non-issue. And I'm not saying that it should be, but one of our concerns is, as we continue to build this work, how can we engage? Hello, how can we engage?
I have an outside voice, so I'll just use it. How can we engage, educate, involve, and build allyship from everybody in the higher education environment to understand that this is a diverse system and we will never have all the same resources on all campuses? Where should we try to? We have to find the best fit for the situation.
Thank you for the question, Rob.
Yep,
I saw a hand over here. I don't know. Can people over here ask questions?
The members of the public?
Okay, are these public? Okay.
I'm gonna restrict questions to board of directors, and then members of the public, their contact information is there. You can also reach out to me, and we'll definitely forward all your questions to them. I'll go to Director Cruz and then Director Hunter. Yes. Can you speak into the microphone? I can't hear you.
Cruz is for President, Kano is for myself.
Sorry, could you say your last name again?
Kano.
Kano. Okay. Thank you.
My question was, can you explain a little bit explain a little bit more about the restaurant meals program? Because at least HSU has a good amount of dreamers who unfortunately do not qualify for CalFresh. And so definitely that sounds like something that we need to install or would like to move forward in, since we do not have anything like that.
Yeah, so the restaurant meals program works in tandem with CalFresh. So it's for folks that can get CalFresh. So it wouldn't necessarily help in that situation with Dreamers. But with the monies that are coming out, the one-time monies that are coming out, what we're hoping is that some of our campuses within the RFP, the request for proposals, will propose a program for students that are not able to qualify for CalFresh, such as Dreamers. So for example, at Berkeley, UC Berkeley, they have a program that is, they set aside a pot of money, and for students that cannot qualify for CalFresh, either because they're $1 or $2 over the threshold, or $50 over the income threshold, or they're Dreamers, undocumented, they have a program where they are giving folks stipends of $100 and whatever dollars, the same amount that they would get if they were on CalFresh. So that is an opportunity for our campuses to do programs like that for students that do not immediately qualify for CalFresh. But the restaurant meals program it works in tandem with CalFresh, so you have to have CalFresh to even be considered for the restaurant meals program.
Director Hunter?
I'm really glad you brought that up, because I was about to say something along the same vein of thought. But
in the foundational values, you mentioned the, given the context of limited resources, the investment to promote student success will prioritize initiatives that have the greatest opportunity for population impact. How do you balance that and still provide resources and prioritize the students who are undocumented? And thus, like, the more impactful programs are the ones that citizens have opportunity to use. So how do you balance that?
Fantastic question. Apparently the microphones don't like me. I've never been known for my tech skills. So that's a fantastic question, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on that and then ask Denise if she has something that she would like to offer. So a literal interpretation of this population impact would be the most number of students impacted, right? I don't think that's the only way to measure that. So I think another way to measure that is we have to acknowledge that different populations, while they may have the same stressors as an input, have a differential impact on them because of, for example, citizenship status, right? And so sometimes I think impact can be measured more by the vulnerability of the population and the difference that you can be making for those students as compared to another group of students who may be more numerous in terms of their head count, but they have more access to resources. So we try to look at things from a contextual point of view. I think the Dream Centers and the development and the iteration of Dream Centers across our campuses is a terrific example of that. Some people may argue, well, they're a small percentage of the population, so why are we creating a center for them when we don't have a center for these other students? We have to take into account the lack of opportunity and the impact that can have on somebody who is undocumented, and what happens to them when legislation continues to change and the daily situation becomes just untenable because you don't know what the change is going to be 30 days from now. So I would say that measurement is not only by numbers, it's also by differential impact. Well, there we go.
Is it a quick question? Okay, Director Guthrie.
Sorry if you already kind of went over this. So the restaurant program, would that be in addition to the monies that are already given to you through CalFresh?
Okay. The restaurant meals program. Microphone's on deck. So the restaurant meals program is through the state. So it's funded, it comes down through the USDA, and then it comes to the state. So it's not monies that is coming from the one-time 15 million. What we want to try to do, in fact, last year there was a bill that passed that the CSU, okay, let me take a step back. So the restaurant meals program is ran through counties. Not all counties in California have the restaurant meals program. They have to opt into it. For the counties that do not have restaurant meals programs, there was a bill that passed last year for CSU campuses that are located in counties that do not have the restaurant meals program, that if they want to join the restaurant meals program, they can do it through an MOU with the CSU. So right now, what we're trying to do is work with the state to establish an MOU so that all campuses that are interested in the restaurant meals program can, whether they have it in their counties or not, through the MOU with the CSU, they would be able to get restaurant meals on their campus. Now, let me also say the restaurant meals program is for 3 specific groups: homeless folks, elderly folks, and disabled folks. Right now. But what the long-term vision here is that if we can get our campuses with the restaurant meals program, that eventually it will expand to college students that are getting CalFresh. And then they would be able to use the restaurant meals program to purchase hot meals on campus. So that is, we're taking it step by step.
Thank you.
Can I make a closing comment real quickly?
Yes, go ahead.
I recognize your time. So I would just like to say a thank you to all the students that are in the room. Honestly, this would not be where it is today if it were not for all of you and the work that you are doing, the advocacy that you are making on your campuses across the state, the interest that you have in helping your peers. This has been a big student-led kind of effort in addition to the work that Denise is doing and all the people on the campuses. So I want to give a shout out to all the students in the room, whether you've been directly involved in Wait in there, there you go. Thank you very much. I look forward to working with all of you this next year.
As Denise is walking away, I just want to take an opportunity to thank Denise for all of the hard work that she has dedicated to this work. It's true, this work wouldn't have advanced without the students, but I would also say that I don't think it would have been the same without an advocate like Denise in the role that she's in. And think about the task of like jumping into a role and you're the only person and they say, hey, figure out food and housing insecurity in a system that serves 500,000 people, good luck. It was no, easy task to jump into that, and she did it without reservation, and you would think that all that she had on her plate, that she would be so busy she would never be able to talk to anybody. But anytime you reach out to Denise, she was there, she was available, she was accessible, she would listen, she would do. So I really just want to thank Denise for all that she's done.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to go ahead, if there's no objection, call a 4-minute recess, so we'll reconvene at 2:36. Please be back in your seats by then. No objections? All right. Enjoy your 4-minute break.